Thanks, Jonathan. Kenny Chesney fans are still recovering tonight from yesterday's big event. It was a scorcher out there yesterday where 40,000 people were crammed in front of the stage. This video was shot not long after the show started at 5 o'clock. A lot of fans beat the heat by taking their boats and anchoring just offshore. We counted almost 400 vessels in the water. But take a look at that crowd. Most had been out on the beach since Saturday morning, saving their places in front of the stage. In the 90-plus degree heat and with very little shade available, it didn't take long before they started passing out from the heat. News 5's Ashley Knight revisited the Floribama today, where workers were taking down the stage and fans were remembering that heat.
You can see crews dismantling the massive stage country singer Kenny Chesney performed on Saturday. Officials say he was sweating after just a few songs, but it was much worse for people who had been standing in 95-degree weather all day with hardly any shade. Around 300 calls were made to paramedics.
So we had a lot of water and Gatorade out on the beach. We had free hydration stations out there. We brought the fire hoses out, and the fire department was awesome. And they got that whole thing set up and sprayed the entire crowd with the fire hoses, which was great.
Lori Jones says she saw the heat getting to people.
We saw lots being carted off. I know, it was upsetting. I think things will change next year if they have a second annual.
These two diehard fans say the heat made it almost not worth it.
Probably not to be out there all day.
Yeah, if we did it again, we probably would come later in the day, but it was fun all day.
Probably the only people who weren't affected by the heat were those on boats and in the water.
It was awesome. No, it wasn't too hot. No, we were standing in 3 feet of water, and we cooled off, and it was a great time.
And some people didn't care about the heat at all.
The wait was worth it, the crowd was worth it, the heat was worth it. We come down to Orange Beach all the time, and for him to be here was a great thing. We love Kenny, baby.
Overall, those in charge say the day went smoother than they expected it to, but plan on making a few changes next year. At the Floribama, Ashley Knight, News 5.
City Manager Ken Grimes says while he doesn't have any official numbers, the vast majority of the heat cases were treated on site with shade and cold water.